Hey there, it's your boy Ike with another episode of Create or Die. And we got to celebrate. This is episode number 20. Can you believe it? 20 episodes. The haters, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are, showing them that being creative is worth something. You know, we're not just a commodity. And guess what? Even you listening to this right now thinking, I'm just listening to this because my spouse made me or my friend suggested it. Yeah, you too are creative. Believe it. All you have to do is verbalize it. And the fact that you're a human being makes you creative. And like any other muscle, you got to work it. And on this little program, Create or Die, we try to inspire those of you who are creative muscle gym rats and those who maybe haven't been in a while. We're here for you. Now, today's episode, it's a good one. It is a good one. I know I say it all the time, and you probably get sick of hearing it. But yeah, this is another good episode of Create or Die. So, buckle up and get ready to learn a little bit about everything. Because today's guest is kind of a kindred spirit of mine. He's a generalist. He's not afraid of anything creative. He'll take a stab at it. You know, he got his start at Universal Studios, working on the intranet and then on the company website. And throughout all that, rubbed shoulders with some of the movie professionals making movie magic. And now, some 20 years later, he's working movies for us at MX, our current employer. So, you know, it's not just movies and rainbows over here. We talk about hard stuff. You know, we talk about things that you may not agree with, and that's okay. And I may, trip over my words from time to time. You might say, what? This guy thinks he can do a podcast? Yeah, he's doing it. Do you think you can be creative? Just do it. You can be. That's what we're going to do. So let's just roll up our sleeves, get our creative on, and let's do this. Okay, Jeff. Well, thanks for agreeing to do this little podcast with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So we've worked together for a little while, and our stories go back even before you and I met each other. We both lived in the Sacramento area at different times, but
Sacktown.
Yeah. Know some different people there, so that's a fun little connection to make.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been here in Utah for several years.
Moved here in 2003, so
okay, 20 years.
Yeah.
Wow,
this
that's
is
a
the
big
20th year.
2 decades.
So I've officially been here longer than I have been in California.
Okay. That's a big milestone.
Yeah,
congratulations.
it is. Yeah.
So, this little podcast we have here is all about creating,
Mm-hmm.
and you are a designer / video extraordinaire here at our current place of employment, MX.
Mm-hmm.
But tell me a little bit more about other ways you might create.
I started doing photography pretty young. Did slide film, Polaroids and all that. And then when I got into high school, my high school in California was actually, I think we got grant money, and so it was the largest dark room in California.
That's sweet.
We had like 12 stations to develop film. We had enlargers. We had all like the chemical baths.
Yeah.
We rolled our own film. So I learned like the classical way to shoot black and white film on old cameras, and I would develop it on the enlarger.
That's cool.
So I loved doing that. That was a lot of fun. And then around the same time in high school, I was a big computer nerd.
Yep.
So I got really into the internet. This was, 94, 95, when having the internet just didn't happen.
Yeah, I was mooching off my uncle's CompuServe account.
Yeah. So I kind of talked the high school that I went to into letting me do their webpage.
Oh, nice.
In exchange for having home internet.
That's a good deal.
Yeah. I didn't know how to make web pages, so it was a really good deal. But I taught myself HTML.
Nice.
I went and got some books. I was like 16 or 17 at the time, and hand coded some web pages in Notepad. And there was a free Microsoft, I think it was Image Ready or
sounds about right.
Something like that. It was a free tool that you could download and do design, and I got really good at that. But for me, I was trying to teach myself to code, and I wanted to be a hacker, and I thought that was the cool thing at the time. So design was just a complete accident. It was an aside so that my web pages didn't look like crap.
Yeah.
So I was really into that, and then the video stuff kind of came later. My first job, I'm jumping around all over the place.
Go for it.
But my first job out of college was at Universal Studios, and so I was on the lot doing design, but I was surrounded by film people, and that was an amazing education. I was able to have great mentors and work with cool people and kind of learn cameras in the industry and all that fun stuff.
I had no idea. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So let's just recap here. So photography, it's not just your digital run-of-the-mill DSLR experience. You started classically with getting your hands dirty, chemicals, darkroom, the whole 9 yards. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, I had no idea about the web experience at high school and Universal Studios. So super cool. Tell us a little bit more about maybe from Universal Studios to how you got to where you are today.
Well, it was interesting because when I was going to college, I was going for computer science. Okay. I wanted to be a coder. I was learning like C. I was learning Linux operating systems and networking, and I was really into that. And like I said, I was also coding web pages. So when I had the interview at Universal, I had a friend that got hired there as a coder, and they were looking for someone to do their intranet site, which is another thing that doesn't really exist anymore. And so I went down and interviewed, and I got the job, and I thought I was being hired to be the back-end coder. Okay. And I showed up my first day at the job, and it was, here's your Mac, here's Photoshop, you're the designer, and holy crap. So I bought some books, and I've been faking it ever since. So I was there for 5 years. They hired me to be the intranet designer. We were kind of our own team, and then I got absorbed into, it was called the Universal Online team. Okay. And they did all like the movie websites, they did universalstudios.com. So I worked with that team for about a year, and then they had a huge round of layoffs because of the .com bust. This was 2001, I think.
Okay.
Where everything just went belly up, and they laid off 80 people in one day. And because our team also did the intranet, they're like, okay, we'll keep you guys. Yeah. And then now you're also in charge of universalstudios.com.
Oh, wow.
So I was in charge of doing the HTML and the design, all the back end stuff for that. And I did that for a few years, and then we got bought by NBC, and I was like, this is just too much for me. This is chaos. So it was around that time I started kind of looking for a new job, and I just on a whim applied to something in Utah and got the job. And that was with a company owned by United Health Group, and I was hired as the web design manager. So I was there for about 4 years, and I mean, web was my focus for a long time. I did a lot of web design, managed those teams. And then that lasted about till 2008, and that's when the next economy crash hit.
Right, that was fun.
And that was a rough time to be a designer. It seemed like it was really hard to find a job, so I kind of started doing freelance design. I started my own like company really, and I would either sit in-house at a company being a creative director, or I would do freelance from home. And that kind of led me to falling into different agencies where they would hire me to come in-house. And from there, I started learning print design and logo design and branding design and doing YouTube and video and photography. And it just really rounded out my design education, coming from a computer nerd background to kind of doing web design. And now I'm doing, official graphic design. And it wasn't something that I ever saw myself doing, but I loved it. It was really fun. And, like I said, I had great mentors. I had great education opportunities, and I was taught a lot, but it wasn't something I ever went to school for.
Yeah. Super cool. Well, in this day and age, school is great, and that can get you in the door for different things, but if you're not the personality type that you demonstrated in that example there, to go and find the information yourself. Books back in the day, now it's more YouTube. You're not going to get where you need to go for sure. So similar experience to you. I never wanted to be a designer. It was animation or illustration, and then that time period, early 2000s, everything was web. That was where all the work was. And so Flash was kind of that transition from animation to web. And then
it was funny because back in the day, whenever I would show up to job interviews and another designer would walk in, or I'd see other designers there to interview, and they'd have their big portfolio that they'd bring in the suitcase, I would think, oh, I know I'm getting this job over them, because I knew digital. Like I was a tech guy. But back then you couldn't go to college and get a digital design degree. It was all traditional illustration, and print design, they would show up with their nice portfolios all printed out on big 13 by 19 sheets, and they'd present that, and I would have my laptop and I'd have my digital portfolio, or I'd say go to this website, and it was a whole new ball game suddenly in design, where people like me could compete, because that stuff didn't exist 5 years before.
That's awesome. Totally. And now, like the .com bubble and the 2008 calamity, whatever you want to call it, we've got the 2022, 23 kind of, I don't know, what are we going to call this? I don't even know what you call this. Rift.
There's lots of layoffs everywhere. So this is my third layoff I've been through.
And you survived all three? Or was there one
I didn't survive the one in 2008, but I survived the one in 2000, 2001. But I mean, it's rough being in that kind of environment. But being able to be flexible, and having a skill set that you can kind of come in and do anything. I read a lot of like Reddit forums. There's a graphic design forum that I really like, and a lot of people will complain about this job listing wants a social media person and a video person and a graphic design person and a marketing person all in one role, and they'll really get upset about it. But that's kind of the reality of today, is you need to know all these different tools to be able to compete.
Agreed.
And it sucks when you're young and you're trying to focus, like, I just want to be a good designer, but your company is asking you, okay, can you also edit this video or go take this picture? To be able to kind of split yourself and be a jack of all trades. But that's kind of what I've done in my career. Is when I first started, I wanted to be a complete one-man shop, where someone would come to me and say, I want this web page, and I wanted to be able to design it and code it and animate it and do all the things that I could do myself. And that's not what ended up happening. Like, I'm not a coder anymore. I don't do any of that back end stuff, but I do the photography and the video and the branding and the design and the web. So I kind of am a one-man shop in a different way.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And I've seen, I need to get into Reddit. Other forums, LinkedIn or other social platforms where people do get upset about, these people are looking for that unicorn that doesn't exist. And it's like, well, no, there's, like you said, jack of all trades. But that is the way to survive in these types of environments. It's like it's great to specialize in something, and that's what you want to do, and it doesn't mean you can't have one favorite part of the whole process. But if you're looking to stand out, those higher ups, they're definitely going to be like, if I have to keep one person, I'm going to keep the person who can do all the things.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Especially after 2008, that was really hard. Getting laid off then, and my goal at that point was to become recession proof. And so that's when I started bringing in, I'll have this client for design and this client for photography, and I kind of balanced a few different clients at the same time, where if I had lost one, I'd be okay. But that was my goal, is just become so good at different aspects of design that I would always have a job.
Awesome. Yeah, take note, everybody. That's 2 out of 2 utility knives, Swiss Army knives agree that's the way to go. So with all of these abilities and skill sets that you picked up over the years, do you have a favorite, or maybe there's a favorite process that transcends all of those different disciplines, a favorite part of the process?
I think something that transcends that process is just the straight up creative aspect of it. Working at an agency, we would respond to creative briefs a lot, or requests for proposals, where someone would come to us and say, we've got this big marketing campaign, what is your idea for it? So we'd spend 2 weeks coming up with a campaign. We would think of the messaging, we would start designing, we would create banner ads or whatever, but the very beginning part of that was to sit in a conference room and just throw out every stupid idea that you could think of. And even if they were completely stupid and we were just trying to make each other laugh, because what's the point if you're not making each other laugh? But we would just throw out anything, and sometimes a stupid idea would spur a good idea, or and we would just whiteboard for a few hours, and that was what I lived for. I mean, that was so much fun to just be creative with other people that also enjoyed that process. And starting from that, like saying, okay, here's the idea, here's what we want to go do, here's how it's going to be creative or different. Okay, now let's figure out how to execute that. And whether that's, okay, we're going to go out and take a picture, we're going to go into Photoshop and design something, or we're going to go record a video, or we're going to sit down and write messaging. It was the creative idea that spawned everything after that, and I loved that process. Agree. I'm agreeing with you too much. I need to hardball push back. What about this? No, I really enjoy that, and that's something that now that I know that you enjoy that process, I think we've got some good opportunities here at our current place where we can implement that and get back to it. Because that's something we did earlier on, but then got away from it. It was more prescribed stuff. But the difference between in-house and agency, this is something that people talk a lot about in design. Agency, you always have varied work. You don't know what your day is going to look like day-to-day basis, but you get really good at being flexible and kind of dealing with uncertainty, whereas in-house you get a lot of time to really refine and brainstorm and be creative and just own your brand, but you kind of miss out on that varied work, or you get stuck in, okay, this is how we do things now, so you don't need to brainstorm anymore. But it would be cool to just kind of take a step back and say, okay, is this the right way? Can we change this up? Can we brainstorm new and fun ways to do things? So you don't get stuck in that in-house rut.
because you don't necessarily have to be reinventing your brand collateral, the logo, the colors, the identity all the time, but you could get together and brainstorm about what's a different angle we can approach this from. We're a fun commercial type video that we want to produce, and it's a certain audience that will respond well to that versus the traditional kind of corporate buttoned up stuff. So we're just planning our next quarter's worth of work here. Don't mind us.
It's a working podcast session.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, that's the way to do it. So after you've been around for 20 plus years, working in the industry, either for a studio like Universal or agency, freelance, in-house. We've given some advice as far as being a Swiss Army knife. Do you have any other advice for someone out there that maybe is looking to break into the creative world?
A couple things. Like, I think some people get into the creative industry thinking, okay, I'm going to sit behind a computer, or I'm going to use whatever tool to design and create all day. And any job you have, there's going to be admin work or what I call ditch digging work, where that's just part of the job. Like, the worst part of being a creative is tracking your hours.
Sure.
I hate that. Everyone hates that. We're not numbers people. Like, I sucked at math in high school, and I don't want to do math at all.
Right.
But that's part of the job. And another like soft skill that's really good to have is being able to present. Part of being a creative is selling your idea and coming in to the client and saying, this is what I envision, and this is why it will work, or this is how we're going to execute it, and being able to sell that idea. I've seen a lot of creatives go into meetings like that and say, okay, here's the design, and then that's it, and the client's going to, well, that's what we're going to focus on then. Okay, well, we're going to talk about the design and why the design is good or it's not.
Or not, yeah.
But you're not talking about the whole picture of how that design fits in. And once you kind of sell or you talk through the process, this is why I made this decision, or because of the way your customers are, because of the way the industry is or the market is, this is why we went this direction or used, this messaging. And being able to walk through your process so that the client kind of gets a peek into the back room of how you arrived there. I've found that I can usually get them to agree with me.
That's great.
I feel like when I go into a meeting and I present the entire story, not just here's the the Photoshop file, or here's the picture we took of how we got there and how this is going to work, then they're bought into the vision, and then they can say, okay, I see how that design fits in, and then they don't pick apart the design because they realize why you made the decisions you made. And so that was kind of a hard lesson for me to learn, especially coming in the industry. I was like 19 because I didn't go to college. Yeah. And being in the room with people that are my age now, so freaking old, 40-year-olds or 50-year-olds who have been doing this for a long time, and here's this 19-year-old kid saying this is how you should make your multi-million-dollar company look. Yeah. There's a lot of anxiety and nervousness around that, but one of the early things I did was I took a public speaking class. Okay. Because I sucked at that. I hated getting in. Like, I'm very introverted. I don't like to talk if I don't have to. I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut. But walking into a room where I have to present a design idea, you need to own that room. Yeah. And people need to trust that you're the expert, or you know what you're talking about, or at least pretend to do so. Totally. And so that's a skill that I don't think a lot of designers have. One of the people on my team last year that got caught in the layoff, that was he would come to me and say, like, what can I work on? And that was the biggest thing that I recommended to him was learn how to drive a meeting. Like, learn how to set an agenda and say, this is what we're going to talk through, and then talk through it, and then say, this is what we just talked through.
Yeah.
And once you kind of cover that story, then I think people are bought in. But it's really hard to learn how to do that.
Yeah. No, that's excellent advice. And I had to learn that the hard way. You go and you fail, and you took that public speaking class, which I'm sure helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But after taking that class, were you just perfect at it, or did you have your failures?
Oh, of course. One of the big things that I took away from that class, it was really cool. They had everyone prepare like a 2-minute presentation on whatever, and then they got in front of the room, and they would present, and then everyone would kind of judge you.
Mm-hmm.
But before they did that, they would ask the person, "How do you think you did?"
Okay.
And every single person, oh man, I messed up, or I stuttered this one part, or I kind of rambled, and to a person, the audience would say, "Oh, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear you stutter, or I didn't know you were nervous, or wow, you sounded great." And the whole lesson was, keep your secrets.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're messing up, don't say that out loud, because people don't know that. They don't know what's going on in your head. So keep your secrets. And people aren't paying as close of attention to what you're saying as you think they are.
Yeah, or as you are.
Yeah. People are really hard on themselves,
Yeah.
and they think they have to be perfect, and it's a dialogue.
Agreed.
But to also, have that confidence to assume, like, I'm the designer. I've been doing this for years.
Mm-hmm.
My advice is legitimate. I went to school for this. That's why you hired me, was to come in here and give you this advice. So to own it.
Yeah. No, I like it, and something I know I can work on all the time, because like you, definitely more introverted and would rather just be behind the computer and make pretty pictures or whatever.
Right.
But I like that angle of owning it.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine, while it definitely increases the chances of you being able to convince people, there have been times, I'm sure, where people push back a little bit.
Yeah.
And so my question to you is, how far do you push?
I really don't push.
Yeah.
What I do is I give my professional opinion,
Yeah.
or I'll give my best advice, or I'll walk them through my process. And this is why I think this will work, and then leave it on them.
Yeah.
If they're bought into it, great. If they're not, okay, let's talk through that. Why?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Why aren't you bought into it? And maybe there's something I hadn't considered, or maybe there's something I didn't know, or maybe they know their specific customer base better than I do, and they know this won't work because we've tried that before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll come in and offer, my professional opinion, but when they start pushing back and they say, okay, it's a dialogue at that point. It's not me trying to convince you. It's, okay, how can we refine?
Mm-hmm.
How can we iterate and make this better, or get it closer to what you have in mind? And then it's a collaboration between those two people, because if I'm trying to sell them or convince them or push them, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I start off saying, this is what I've done in the past. This is what I've seen work. This is why I made these choices. Here's the project. Here's the design.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, okay, I see your process. That's great.
Yeah.
That 10th time where they say, no, I don't like it,
Mm-hmm.
then that's your opportunity to collaborate and have a dialogue about why. And I've had clients in the past, freelance or when I'm working at an agency, sometimes it's, okay, we're not going to see eye to eye.
Yeah.
Like I'm not the right choice for you then, because I don't agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And if you're in the freelance kind of environment or an agency environment, it's really hard to fire a client.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to, because you can see where it's going to end up.
Mm-hmm.
But other times I've had great results really actively listening and trying to figure out what the issue is, and that's an opportunity for you to learn and grow and maybe change your process or change the design or change the campaign based on feedback.
Yeah. No, perfectly put. I concur 100%. Where
You gotta push back more, man.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I just said that earlier, didn't I? Here I am again, agreeing all the time. No, but seriously, like yeah, you're the expert. They hired you to do this. You obviously want to give your best expert opinion, but in the end, like you said, they probably do know their clients better.
Yeah.
They've been in the industry longer, whatever. And then there are some people that just have to rationalize their existence for their job, and if they don't challenge something or feel like they've given some input, then they feel like they're not doing their job.
Yeah. We call that peeing on the design. They just got to leave their mark a little bit.
Yeah.
There was a joke back in the day where at the agency, we would always send a design. We'd make the logo like 15% too big. And so their feedback was always, oh, make the logo a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
And we'd say, okay. And then that was their only feedback because they had to pee on it a little bit. They had to say, okay, I'm the boss.
Yeah.
I need to make at least one change here. I see the logo's too big.
Yeah. No, that's good. And one way I would get around that and continue to. So if any of the stakeholders that work with me currently are listening to this, I'm sorry. But, as I'd create maybe 3 different versions of a design if the time and budget allowed, where it's like, here's the safe version that I know that they're asking for.
Yeah.
Here's the one I'd really like to do, and I'm pushing the boundaries, and it's going to be great for my portfolio. And then here's something in the middle, and then 9 times out of 10 they would want the middle one with some small changes.
Yeah.
So I was able to let them pee on the process that way, if you will.
It's a horrible analogy, but it works.
But it makes sense. Makes sense. No, that's awesome. This has been a great conversation, Jeff. I've learned more about you than I ever wanted to know. Just kidding. No, it's been great. But before I let you go, is there, let's say there's someone listening to this that's like, hey, I got to get in touch with this guy, pick his brain about something. What's the best way to get a hold of you? Is there a social media platform or anything?
Probably LinkedIn is best.
Yeah.
Jeff Holmes, if you search for me on there, that would be best. I used to be on Twitter and Insta and Facebook, and then I just got too old for all of that. And I'm just a grumpy old man now, and I deleted it all.
That's awesome. I'm having a midlife crisis with that stuff where earlier on I didn't do it, and now I'm like, I should try this and be like the cool kids, and eventually I'll come to the same conclusion. I'm sure that I'm too old too. So awesome, Jeff. Well, thanks for your time, and get back to it.
Yeah, good to be here.
What did I tell you? Yeah, a good one, right? And Jeff, you got me. I'm a pushover. I agree too easy. Or is it that you and I are cut from the same cloth? I think so. If I disagreed, I would push back. Okay. I'm not a pushover. I'm not a big giant teddy bear. I got some fight in me still. Yeah. Don't you worry. And we're going to continue to keep bringing it here on Create or Die. And we're going to build it. We're going to make it bigger. We're going to branch out into other things. We're already doing that. Check us out on the different socials, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Facebook. I know, only old people on Facebook, but we're building something. It's just the ground floor right now, but I'm recruiting some people to help contribute, and we're gonna double, if not quadruple, the output. Now that doesn't mean we're gonna be bringing more than one episode of this podcast to you per week, but you can expect more videos, how-to videos, behind-the-scene videos, inspiring videos, whatever, as well as more merch and just stylish threads to be wearing and sporting. So stay tuned. And until next time, my friends, keep on creating. Create or die.